The message on the front of this is from Natalie Bollinger. Back in 2016 while we were friends. This is her typing to me about, well, one night she was drugged, apparently, her and her sister. That was when they were in them sleeping bags with Emery and Arturo. Both Natalie and Alicia Bollinger mentioned me trying to run them off when they were underage. Both of them thanked me for running them off when they were underage. Only for me to get treated like I was some sort of a pervert when they became adults. So the message on the front of this, Natalie was telling me she understood. There were a lot of messages between Natalie and I. Because we were friends. I have to deal with predators like Andrew Wolnez who harass me every single night. And them racist youngins fucked with me again today. They do this shit every day. So let's get to the topic of the discussion. What's the topic today? The folks who work at Safeway. If you've been following my channel long enough, you've heard a lot of people suggest violence. Let's just look at the Wolnez situation. How many people wanted to suggest violence? Let's start off with the deli department. How many people in the deli department wanted to suggest violence? Was it just Candy? I'd start telling her what's going on, and she'd interrupt to come up with some violent solution. Or say that somebody should whoop his ass. Somebody should this and somebody should that. Now, if I repeat that stuff, I'm treated as if I'm some sort of a monster for repeating it. How dare I? So I gotta try not to, right? How many people there since the very beginning wanted to talk about violence as a solution, or as the only solution, mostly? Cynthia's recorded on my channel at least half a dozen times, coming up with nothing but violent solutions. I stopped recording around Cynthia because although a lot of people were telling me, hey, go to Cynthia, she knows about this stuff, she could help you turn it in. But every time it'd turn into Cynthia talking about hurting him, and I'd say, I don't want him hurt. She offered more than once to have her husband beat him up for me, and I told her no, I don't want anybody beaten up. Then there's Mona. She got to be there one of the days that Andrew Wolnez wanted to scream a bunch of, well, he screamed the N-word at me, screamed some other words at me, called me a pedophile again. Just kept it up. And of course, what was her suggestions? Violence, of course. Who else in the deli? Miranda, of course. Nearly every time, violent solutions. Violence, violence, violence. Candy, same thing. Violence, violence, violence. And her husband Joe, violence, violence, violence. All of these people with their fucking violence. The cashiers, too. Deborah, her solution was an ass whooping. Same thing with Rihanna, her solution was an ass whooping. And of course, when I say I'm against that, nearly all these folks are, well, of the opinion of, well, if people are hurting you, you should be allowed to hurt them back. Or what's the other one I get? Well, if you telling them, you asking nicely, and then you telling them to leave you alone, if that's not enough, then obviously the only thing they understand is violence, and the only thing that's going to get them to stop is violence. What they don't recognize is I'm not capable of that violence, physically or otherwise. Violence got me all fucked up in the head. Y'all are sick as far as that goes. You don't take that violence out on the actual predators, you take it out on innocent victims. You take it out on people that it's easy to take advantage of, just like any other predator. Then there's the idea if I just move, if I just move on, if I just move elsewhere, if I move my stuff to here or I move my stuff to there, if I let my stuff be out at your place or their place or this person's place or that person's place. Meanwhile, what ends up happening? I have no access to it. I'm entirely dependent upon you because you have all of my evidence and you're not doing anything with it. Candy and Nathan both had a lot of really good ideas. The problem is, neither one of them was listening to me, and their ideas were not based on my situation. You can say jumping out of an airplane without a parachute is a dumb idea. You could say that 100 times. You'll be right 100 times. Jumping out of an airplane without a parachute is stupid, especially at altitude. But that saying is not going to fucking apply. If you're on the ground, you're not anywhere near an airplane. An airplane's got nothing to do with the situation or the scenario. Let me see. Them youngins probably won't be done fucking around until 4 in the morning due to the fact that it's Friday night. Let's talk about some of the other folks at Safeway. Miguel did not offer up any sort of violence. What did he offer up? Well, he went over there and he picked up those pumpkins that them youngins were throwing at my vehicle. But a lot of other people there, primarily women, it's the, well, he deserves an ass whooping, he deserves an ass whooping thing. And of course, I'm not supposed to say anything. There's a social norm and a social expectancy that I'm supposed to go along with. Christy and Christine, both, their solutions were violence. Both Kristas, their solutions were violence. The Krista at the Starbucks, her solution at first was to go inside the building After that, her solution was to spray him with pepper spray. Well, that was a good idea, but I ain't got it in me to do it. Nearly everybody's solutions are violence. There's a lady named Kristen. She was there for one of the assaults by Andrew Wolnez. And she says more than once how I should have gotten violent, how I should get violent with him. Because he won't stop getting violent with me. He doesn't understand anything except violence. It doesn't register to him that I'm trying to turn it in the right way. And I'm being denied that right because I have to go in alone. I'm treated as if, rather than try to turn in my predators the right way, that I'm out here trying to stalk them, trying to hunt them down like dogs. However, these people pretend even worse, don't they? Well, I'm told how I should think and how I should feel by people who don't even know what my situation is. People who want to give the advice of, hey man, you should put on a parachute before you jump out of the airplane. Well, it's a good thing I don't have to jump out of an airplane. It's just unfortunate that you, as a supposed friend or family member, seem to think that I'm jumping out of an airplane and need a parachute. No matter how many parachutes you send me, it doesn't make any difference. I'm still not jumping out of a fucking airplane. No matter how many times you insinuate that I must be jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, and that's my problem. Well, it doesn't detract from the fact that I still don't have an airplane, and a parachute is not the problem. No matter how many times you say a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, that doesn't stop the assaults. No matter how many times you tell me I just need to love myself, that doesn't stop the social isolation. Let's get back to the folks at Safeway. There's a lot of folks who have good intentions. Christy, one of the night manager ladies, she's talked about getting violent more than once. Rihanna actually talked about shooting people. That's right. I had to ask her if she was from Texas. No, she is not. She just don't like bullshit. She don't like violence. And of course, she thinks that she should have the right to protect herself. She also believes that I should have the right to protect myself. The difference is, I don't. If somebody beats me up, I go to jail if I speak up. If somebody physically or sexually assaults me, I get blown off when I try to turn it in. And if I try too hard to turn it in, I get arrested, have false charges pressed on me, or I get sent to a mental institution where the cops pretend like I'm schizophrenic. Lovely, isn't it? I'm not supposed to say anything, right? That's the big thing about being a guy, isn't it? You're not supposed to say nothing. Let's talk about Paul. He's been there more than once when people have screamed their racist bullshit at me. What's his solution? Ass whoopings, same as everybody else's solution. What makes any of these people think I can defend myself? It's like when my brother-in-law, Riley, was telling me, hey man, you were in martial arts, why don't you use that stuff on people? Well, first of all, kind of the point of martial arts is not having to use it on people. You have it if it's necessary, but optimally, you like to avoid the situation and any and all violence. Anybody who's ever been in a fight knows that it doesn't go in real life the way that it goes in your head. There's a whole bunch of you that seem to have these Hollywood scenarios in your head. But that's not the reality. The reality is most of the drug addicts that you're going to run into out here, they're not out to get you. That's just how Hollywood paints them. The reality of drug addiction is that we all know alcoholics. Most of us have alcoholics within our families. Most of us who are victimized by our own families understand that our families are more likely to try to hide the family child molester, help out the victim in becoming safe. We also know that if the victim is to be heard. There's a young man named Bailey in the deli, and he wants to offer up violence as well. Of course, he's not offering it up himself, he's just offering it up as a solution. Well, you know, you should just this and you should just that, and of course, they're all violent solutions. Mind you, Bailey is not very big. Then there's Jamie, and she is always pleasant to me. And she doesn't talk about whooping ass nonstop because she knows that it bugs me. She actually has some respect in that department. The first couple of times, yes, she offered that up, not offering to do violence herself or offering for anyone else to do violence for her, but just saying that that's what should be done. I repeat what people say should be done. What I say should be done is generally the most common consensus. Just because I say it should be done doesn't mean that I'm agreeing with it, that I think it's somehow okay. What I'm doing is telling you common consensus. And the common consensus over the Wolnez situation has been that I should have been getting violent from the very start. Some of these people offered to listen to me months ago and never made the time. But they always make the time for the things that they want to do, right? Meanwhile, all these folks who say, oh, I don't know how to turn it in, I don't know how to turn it in. Well, I do. So instead of arguing with me for 6 weeks, how about you listen? That's hard to do when you're having to answer 20 questions, and it's not 20 questions, is it? It ends up being a lot of questions, and then we're off on a wild goose chase of all of your questions instead of the that I'm living through. If I could have gotten people to just stop asking so many goddamn questions and wait until they know what's going on, to start offering things like parachutes. Obviously, that's a metaphor. However, we can take it as more than just a metaphor. Because many of the things that I'm being asked to do are just as off base. A lot of the solutions that people have are not solutions. You just have to love yourself is not a solution. No matter how much you love yourself, loving yourself doesn't stop abuse. Loving yourself doesn't get your abuser turned in. Loving yourself doesn't get a friend or family member to go in with you right away. Loving yourself doesn't get the people who claim to love you to understand that they need to shut up and listen. For the love of God, shut up and fucking listen. But these people don't believe in God, do they? Nearly all of the people in my life who have claimed to be Christians have offered up violence as their solution for nearly everything. That's the Rambo Jesus. I don't believe in the Rambo Jesus. I've read the Bible, and the Rambo Jesus is not in it. Nathan did a lot of fucked up things. Did he do them intentionally? Yes, in the end he did. When he repeatedly didn't show up, or didn't show up on time, or would redo the schedule and just not inform me, or decide that somebody else was going to do it and that keeping his word just didn't matter. And while I have no friends or family member to go to, these people, I have to understand when it's the holidays, they're going to listen to me. They're going to listen to me, but the holidays are coming up. Then they can't listen because the holidays are here. Candy was going to listen to me before Thanksgiving. She didn't make the time. She made a lot of time for the things that she wanted to do. And I tried, but she didn't listen. She hadn't made the time. Then she was going to make the time after Thanksgiving, and she never made the time. Then she was going to make the time before Christmas, but she didn't make the time. Then, of course, Christmas was here, so it was a bunch of family stuff, so she didn't make the time. She was also going to make some time when she was on vacation, but she didn't make the time. She was going to make the time before she set up the appointment with Micah, but she never made that time. Then she was going to make the time right before we went to talk to Micah, and she didn't make that time. Then she wasn't able to make the time because of the storm. And then she wasn't able to make the time because she was sick. And then she wasn't able to make the time because she was sick again. And then she wasn't able to make the time because instead of the flood storm, we had an ice storm. And she still wasn't able to make the time. And she got sick again. And still was not able to make the time. With Nathan, it's been much the same thing, except he has to have a lot of mental health days. And if he doesn't keep his word, well, you're expected to understand, just like with everyone else, when you need help and other people don't keep their word, it's your fault for needing help, not their fault for not keeping their word. And that is so horrible and dehumanizing. Let's talk about Rainbow. Rainbow also wanted to offer up violence as what she felt was the right thing. So many people, violent-minded in this small town. People who said that they wanted to help, but it's difficult to get help from people who are over and over again. I tell them no, I don't want violence. Same as I tell the people out here on the street. I ask them not to get violent. I ask Candy not to get violent and Joe not to get violent. I asked Cynthia not to get violent and Mona not to get violent. I asked Rainbow not to get violent. And Krista not to get violent. Christy, I asked her not to get violent. I asked Paul not to get violent. I asked John not to get violent. I asked Angie not to get violent. Angie and John both, of course, their solution was violent. John, his solution is always go to helping hands, helping hands, helping hands. Go to helping hands. Like clockwork, that's always going to be his solution. And no matter how much I try to explain to him that my situation is not the same as his solution will always be go to helping hands, helping hands, helping hands. Luckily for me, he hasn't offered help in ways that I actually need and depend on, the way that Candy and Nathan did. So when he says those things, I take it with a grain of salt. He just doesn't know. These folks who claim that they care about me and said that they would help put a stop to the abuse, I explained to them, hey, there's simple protocols to follow. When I'm harmed, I go to a friend or family member, and that friend or family member helps me to turn it in. But none of them will listen to understand what the protocols are, what steps need to be followed, because they had some idea, and they're running off on that tangent all OCD like with that fucking parachute in that goddamn airplane. Nobody's jumping out of a fucking airplane. A lack of love from myself is not the issue. It's lack of respect, lack of dignity, and of course, lack of love from other people. When you say those things, when you offer to help in the ways that you do you actually mean those things? Just pulling the wool over their eyes, blowing smoke up their backside, saying whatever it is to try to calm down the situation for right fucking now, huh? Because that's more important. Now let's talk about control situations. That's a situation with Safeway people telling me to go inside of the building. If I'm harmed anywhere in the United States, under federal law, yeah, something is supposed to be done. But the Safeway folks, they only cared if I was on the property. And then even though it was on the property recorded multiple times, I was told, oh, well, you got to go inside the building. So I went inside of the building, and that kept me reasonably safe for a while. Reasonably. But Andrew Wolnez didn't take the fucking hint, and neither did Chris Stafford. Same thing with James Murphy. Meanwhile, it was the police who created that situation. And it was my friends and family members who created the situation with police by telling me to go to the police rather than helping me to go to the police, pawning me off on the police instead of going to the police with me, telling me to call the cops as if I can just call the cops like you can. If you really have it that spoiled, and that's what I'm gonna have to call it at this point, is spoiled. If you are so spoiled that the cops will actually at least pretend to do their jobs for you, you and I have nothing in common. There's a guy named Jeremy. And I asked Jeremy the same thing I ask many of these people who offer to help me. If the things I'm going through happen to your son or daughter, how long would it take you to do something? The answer is nearly always right away. But what about with me? Is it right away? No. It's never. Candy was never going to listen to understand. Nathan was never going to listen to understand. They were listening to reply. And that's the biggest waste. while us autistic folks are treated like we're retards who don't understand social cues. We do understand social cues. We also understand that you march right over the top of them. When some girl next door that you think is cute pretends that somebody might do a bad thing to them, you'll destroy that man's life. When the disabled autistic kid next door is the one being abused, you blow him off. You might give him a sandwich. Hey man, here's a sandwich. Here's a sandwich. Here's a sandwich. Have you eaten? Have you eaten? Fuck whether or not I've eaten. If I'm hungry, I'll tell you. Stop changing the subject. Neither Nathan nor Candy took the time to try to understand what was going on in a timely and efficient manner. With Nathan, there's at least half a dozen occasions where I let him know exactly what I was supposed to. When I'm abused, I get a hold of a friend or family member. I tell them what abuse I'm enduring, and they help me to turn it in at their nearest convenience. Well, after months and months and months of having rocks thrown at me, and Nathan not doing shit, and Candy doing shit, I'm going, well, what the fuck am I even trying for? That's the way it is with literally everyone when you're a male, especially if you're a broke male out on the streets. A bunch of people in houses are going to tell you how it is, and they're going to be wrong. A bunch of women are going to tell you how it is, and they're going to be wrong. A bunch of minorities are going to tell you how it is, and they're going to be wrong. The police are going to tell you how it is, and they're going to be wrong. The overwhelming fact of the matter is, you just simply do not matter. Now, these youngins, I'm actually surprised they're not driving by right now doing all their hooting and honking and hollering. I have had to pick up a few things around my vehicle that they've thrown. Of course, since I parked at this new spot, almost all the stuff they've thrown at me, I've only known they threw it at me because when I woke up, it was there. With all these folks, when I was trying to explain to them about the abuse, the point is to not allow the victim to be spoken over. Jeremy was going to help me to move my stuff since Candy's pissed off. She can stay pissed off. She can be as pissed as she wants, just like Walnez. Go ahead and be pissed off. Just don't fuck with my evidence. Don't hold my shit hostage. So Jeremy was going to help me get my stuff back. And he still hasn't. Now I got court on Monday against Walnez. And of course I've had to wait over 2 months to try to get my stuff from out at Candy's. I've had to listen to Nathan make excuse after excuse. Like, I need to go out there and get the evidence now. He says that he's able to go out there and help me to get the evidence now. Not obviously right now, but this is about a month ago. His excuse was, well, I don't want to make you go up and down the stairs. I said, dude, you know what? I have to go up and down those stairs. I have to get that evidence. I can't just leave it there. That is not an option. I can't go through the evidence if it's out at fucking Candy's collecting goddamn mold. The evidence that's in town. If you're not going to help me go get that evidence at the time and place that you said that you would and that we designated for it, and then you show up and your excuse for not doing it is, oh, well, I don't want you to have to go up and down those stairs. I don't give a shit. It's not a matter of want. It's a matter of that's what's fucking necessary to get the evidence, go through the evidence, and fucking turn it in. So regardless of Nathan's good intentions, there's a lot of stuff he's just not capable of fucking doing. He's not capable of paying attention. He's not capable of understanding that there's no goddamn airplane, there's no goddamn parachute. Whoa. With Jeremy getting sick for almost a whole week, I've had to wait. All the work that I put in trying to show Nathan what was going on, and Candy what was going on, obviously it didn't fucking matter. They weren't listening. Hello, New Zealand. No, I'm good.
Gonna get cold out tonight, looks like.
Yeah, I was looking at the clouds earlier. I was kind of expecting a hell of a storm by this time of the morning, but I don't know. They were kind of wispy and willowy over there, but it almost looked like there was a supercell forming and heading north over here. That was probably around 11 this morning.
I'm gonna hold out for a few more hours. Yeah, I'm gonna want to put in.
Weather here is almost like Colorado.
Yeah.
Just not nearly as cold during the winter. Anyway, so Jeremy, good intentions and all, he intended on trying to get my stuff back to me, right? Yep. But he's been sick over a week. Or right about a week. With Nathan, always something that come up. Now with Nathan, he doesn't know well enough to come up with a decent excuse. If somebody died, that's a decent excuse for leaving a friend hanging. There's not a whole lot of excuses that are enough, though, are there? That's what let me know that all of my friends of many, many, many years weren't actually really friends. When they were being harmed, they expected my help immediately. When I was being harmed, they expected me to fix it myself. If your friends and family aren't willing to help stop abuse, they're not your friends and they're not your family. They are acquaintances and relatives and nothing more. No matter what Candace or Nathan's excuses are, it's their word and their lack of follow-through that is the issue. I don't blame the cops for Candy and for Nathan. I don't blame Candy and Nathan for the cops. I do pay attention to cause and effect. See, while it may not be your fault that a police officer assaults me, it is your decision to pussyfoot around instead of helping to turn him in. Jeremy said that if this stuff happened to his son, he'd do something about it immediately. And although he may not know what to do, he will find out. And you goddamn right would, wouldn't you? But I'm an adult, right? So, of course, a lot of these predators and law enforcement and otherwise want to use my age as an excuse not to do their job. I'm not a child and I'm not over 65, so magically they don't have to do their job. And they think that we're supposed to just fall for that ignorant bullshit. No, it's a fucking felony to do this shit to me. But only if friends and family care in a timely and efficient manner. How many times did Nathan set up an appointment and not show up? Does he want that brought up every time? Of course he doesn't. He wants to bring up the times that he did show up. Even if it wasn't to help. Or it wasn't to help as intended. When somebody's got to walk 100 miles and they need help making some shoes so that they can walk that 100 miles, You showing up with a fucking parachute is not going to help them. You may have some long-winded, drawn-out cockamamie fucking plan with that parachute. But the thing is, expedience. That means quickly. When an at-risk adult is being abused, they're at more risk of abuse than a child is, because nobody cares when you're an adult. Well, you have a 24-hour window of time to try to find a child who's missing before your chances decrease dramatically. That doesn't go for homeless people or for disabled adults. Fucking dickhead. That guy decided to pull up right next to my vehicle just so he could do the exhibition of acceleration pulling off. What a friendly feller. Anyway, we do have to pay attention to cause and effect. A lot of people harmed me and wanted to pretend that I had done horrible things that I hadn't. Things that Natalie never accused me of doing. Things that Alicia never accused me of doing. Would you guys pretend I did those things to Natalie and Alicia to this day? Somehow justifies your illegal activities, doesn't it? Sure, you assaulted me, but if you call me a pedophile, then it makes it okay. Right? Sure, you kicked the shit out of my vehicle and break the damn thing, but you pretend that I'm a murderer and it makes it okay, right? Shit, you call somebody the right name, you can make just about any sin magically okay, can't you? You can magically justify anything that you wouldn't want anybody doing to you, but you can justify doing it to somebody else, can't you? If you're in Nebraska, what are the names that make it okay? Well, you can call them the N-word. Yep, somehow magically, in a Nebraskan's mind, that's supposed to make it okay. Or, of course, another one for Nebraska, or even here in Tillamook, pretend they're a homosexual. If you pretend they're a homosexual and you call them a homosexual, in a place like this, that somehow magically justifies the assault. Like the person asked for you to assault them because they're homosexual. Know your area, you know? Be aware of your surroundings. The thing is, while you pretend we don't understand social cues, no, we absolutely do. You treat us with complete and total disrespect. We understand that social cue. We're not talking over you because we don't get social cues. We talk over you because we're the victim and it is our voices that need heard. Our problems need to be addressed, not your solutions. What the fuck are your solutions to? If it's not a problem that we're having, then why are you spitting that solution at us? Oh yeah, because you chose to remain in ignorance. You chose to remain in exile of information. There's at least 3 other victims of Andrew Wolnez. I would absolutely love to work together with them to see to it that he's not allowed to do this anymore. But that requires working together, and the police will not allow that. They'll outright lie to you and try to change the scenario when they don't want to do their jobs. They'll make false accusations and false insinuations. These are meant to deter any onlookers or any witnesses from coming forward, from making a statement. And that other thing is like, oh, you can't make a statement for someone else. It's illegal for them to even tell you that. How many of you were aware of that? It's illegal for them to tell you that. It is illegal for the police to try to deter you in any way, shape, or form from making a police report, from turning in your predators. And they are mandated reporters, which means that it's not an option. However, we get to see that in reality, mandated reporting laws are just a fucking joke. Just like the HEPA laws. They don't protect the victims. They don't protect the patients. They protect the hospitals, facilities, the people with money. But they will never protect us. They will never protect the poor. They will never protect the working class. As far as the laws that are supposed to protect the disabled, well, those are exploited like a motherfucker. And it's the complacency of people like Candy and Nathan that allows such a thing. For them to repeatedly want to march in blindly, knowing absolutely nothing. That's not a friend. If they have so little respect for you that they're not even going to listen to what's going on before putting 10,000 different ideas on you and pushing them over and over and over and over again until you say yes or until you blow your head off. They're not going to try going the legal route. I still need to turn in the assaults by Andrew Wolnez, and I can't. Because not one of these people took it seriously. Jeremy doesn't take the abuse seriously. Candy doesn't take it seriously. Joe doesn't take it seriously. Cynthia knows well enough to take it seriously. In Cynthia's frame of mind, she's trying to save Andrew Wolnez prison time through an ass whooping. She figures if her husband whoops the shit out of Andrew Wolnez, maybe it'll screw his head on straight, and he won't end up in prison for the rest of his life. And what's universal? You can hear on this channel when Deborah's talking about the ass whooping that Wolnez deserves. How I speak about how I believe that's wrong. Same thing with the folks at Starbucks. I speak up about how I think that's wrong. I tell Candy that I don't like the option of violence, that I believe it's wrong. I tell Cynthia that I believe it's wrong. I tell Mona that I believe it's wrong. That I hope they don't get violent. That I hope they choose peace instead. I ask them if, instead of offering to harm him physically, if they would help me to turn him in. Instead of them offering me up to fight him, how about we just avoid the fight to begin with? Best way to avoid fight is no be there. Well, best way to avoid punch is no be there, I guess is the saying. Anyway, there's no hatred towards Candy or Nathan. There's hatred for what they've done and the fact that they just don't give two fucking shits. I didn't need a bunch of people blowing smoke up my ass about getting violent with others. I needed help stopping that other person from getting violent with me repeatedly. And that would have required a friend or family member to take it seriously right away and help turn it in right away. Now we had a good start with finally getting the protection order paperwork turned in together. I could not have done that all by myself. Having to be afraid of police, talking over me, taking advantage of me, assaulting me, pressing false charges on me, or even taking me to a hospital and telling the hospital that I'm schizophrenic or delusional. You also can see very plainly, watching my channel, that these people do exist. These situations do exist. The abuse does, in fact and indeed, exist. These people are not figments of my imagination, nor are the dents on the side of my vehicle, nor are the N-words recorded on my channel. The assaults recorded on my channel are for surely real assaults. It's not some cartoon assault that I recorded off the Bugs Bunny and Tweeted show and popped up here for your amusement. These are violent-minded, criminally insane individuals in many cases. It's insane for anybody to believe, after I grew up in the system, that I would just lay down and take any of this. It is entirely ludicrous for any of the people whose rights I fought so hard for to believe that after fighting that hard for their rights, that I wouldn't try at least fighting for my own. When they needed help, they needed help. But when I needed help, all they wanted to do is give me dismissive advice. Why don't you just love yourself? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. You ever think about moving elsewhere? Why don't you just move on? You know, you should just get better friends. Meanwhile, when you say these things, you know that you're being dismissive of the victim. If you don't fight for the victim's rights, you don't deserve those rights yourself. And that's as plain and simple as it is. Holly type, top of the morning. Top of the morning to you too. Top of the morning to you, and the rest of the day to you. Holly type, they're criminally insane. Yes, Andrew Wolnez is absolutely criminally insane. The guy is not right in the head. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as in he is a danger to himself and to others. Especially others. He's obviously got more than just a touch of narcissism. By the way, when I was in the prison in Lincoln, one of the doctors there, his name was Dr. Ted Hill. He looked up Natalie Bollinger's name and looked into it, got back to me, and you know what he said? He said Natalie Bollinger was an extreme narcissist. That's right, he used the word extreme. Well, he typed, that must be scary. It is scary. You can hear him on my channel beating on my vehicle, screaming at me. You can see him pursuing me, going by my vehicle to be as sarcastic and snide and bullyish as possible, and then come back and put his nasty cockbeaters on me and pretend like somehow I'm doing something wrong. And then we've got the goddamn pigs in this fucking town, helping him to get away. So, Holly, what are you doing to help turn it in? There was a guy calling himself Scott Shaw. He was going to help me more than once, and then when it comes time to actually keep his word, he's nowhere to be found. He reads the messages I sent him, he just doesn't reply to any of them. If you do that to people, you're a low-down, dirty piece of shit. Don't pretend that you're going to help somebody, and then the day that you're supposed to help them, you ghost them, and then you just ignore them for a week. You know what that does? Let's say your little sister gets raped, and you're going to help her turn the rapist in. And you're going to help to do it tomorrow morning. But then you ghost her for a week. You don't go in with her, and she has to be afraid to go in alone. Eventually, she's going to take a shower, wash away a lot of the evidence. All because you're a lazy piece of shit that doesn't give a holy fucking goddamn about your sister. That makes you trash, not your sister. The same thing goes for any adult out here on the streets being victimized. We're all vulnerable adults. We're all being taken advantage of. We're all being lied to. We're all being manipulated. That's what being a human being is all about. Trying to manipulate somebody into giving a shit about you. The world's a lonely goddamn place. Yep. That tasted like wet cigarette. I lived my entire life trying to be a good man. What I realized is that nobody cares about good people when they want something. I'm direct about what I want and what I need. People just ain't direct about helping. Like, sure, they may claim that they're going to help you how they need or how you need 100 times. But when it all comes down to it, they're going to do what they want instead. They had this idea at the last minute, and we have to go along with that. And if we don't go along with that, they're going to repeat it 30 times until you finally say yes, hoping that if you jump through the hoops they want you to, they might help how they promised to begin with. Shannon Alvarado, Kayla Trujillo, Brandon Ratner. These are all people who could have helped turn in the situation a lot sooner. All three of them are people who literally never tried. To this day, Shannon Alvarado has literally made not even one attempt to turn in Kara Johnson Miles. Instead, she wants me to make the statement for her. That's pretty fucking crazy. Holly typed, I haven't done anything. And you guys spoke on the phone. You okay? No, I'm not okay. I still don't have any actual help turning this stuff in. See, getting a temporary restraining order, that's not the end of it. That doesn't mean that you just magically let all of this abuse go by and keep on happening. No, I still need to be able to turn in the abuse that happened safely. And I can't safely make a phone call to the police. They'll just talk over me. I need someone who is actually going to speak up like your goddamn mama would if you were raped, if you were beaten, if people were trying to kill you and your friends and family. Because while I may not have people actively pursuing me to try to kill me at the moment, there's plenty of people that wish they could. No matter how many threats against my life there were, the police were never going to listen without a friend or family who give a shit. And my friends and family didn't give a shit. They pretended to when I had resources they could rip off. Cheat me out of. Once those resources were gone, they were gone. And of course, how dare I speak up about it, right? How many of those people who called me friend are no longer friends with me because I told the truth about the situations? Because I recorded the truth about the situations. Let's take a look at people like Kayla Trujillo. Yep, she had a lot of different stuff that she liked to tell me that ended up not being true. Every time she broke her word, it was always somebody else's fault, always someone else's choice. The person she liked blaming the most was her mom at the very beginning. When you make a victim go in to talk to the police alone, or you make him talk to the police, and you, as a friend or family member, are completely uninformed of what's going on, you're being hurtful. Please, when you say you're going to take the time to listen, make sure you do that first. not last. If somebody needs to wade across a small pond to get to their place, they can do it barefooted. It'd probably be more comfortable in galoshes. But they don't need a fucking parachute to do it. Good to be with you. Thank you for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper. And your sister's keeper too. And no victim left behind.